Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to speak with Matthew James. Matthew is the president and CEO of Purity Life Health Products up in Canada. And they deal, as the name implies, with health and wellness products and all sorts of different things in that space. And it was kind of a pleasure listening to him and really listening to his perspective around why he got into that space and what was it from a personal journey, health and wellness and some of the things that influenced that. But I think one of the interesting parts about it was the acquisition that they recently have been integrating. And he'll tell you a little bit more about that story. But I think it was kind of fascinating that he'd been pursuing someone for 13 years to try to put a deal together. And I'll tell you, in the days of instant gratification, that is not something a lot of people would be willing to do. But slowly, it started to make more and more sense. And when they said yes, all of a sudden, now I got to figure out what to do with this. But anyway, it's an absolute pleasure speaking with Matthew and learning a little bit more about his story. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. This episode is brought to you by Connected Peers, an online peer collaboration platform for distribution professionals. Let's face it, most managers don't have the opportunity to speak with their industry peers about common challenges in their departments. Sure, they might see each other at an annual conference, but that hardly provides any real relationship building or continuity. What if there was a forum to solve challenges with those in your same role? Well, now there is. The concept is simple. Purchasing managers meeting with purchasing managers, training managers meeting with training managers, marketing managers meeting with marketing managers. You get the idea. There are 10 unique role-based communities to choose from. These are monthly, facilitated meetings all via Zoom. Ask questions and receive feedback from people who understand the challenges of your position. Isn't it time that you quit going it alone? To learn more and find your peers, visit us at www.connectedpeers.com. Well, hey, Matthew, welcome to Distribution Talk. I really appreciate you taking the time to come speak with me.
Pleasure to be here, Jason. Thanks for the opportunity.
So, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, just why did you get involved with distribution? I mean, what attracted you, especially to the industry that you serve? And eventually, could you tell us a little bit about that industry? Because it's a little unique to some of my listeners. I don't think they've had an opportunity to really understand, how Purity Life, fits in the distribution world.
Sure, absolutely. Certainly a unique way of coming into distribution. Really, it was a personal interest. And that is because I was really interested in natural health products and living a healthy lifestyle. And so that attracted me. And I got myself a job in sales with a branded supplement company called Quest Vitamins at the time, and was there for about 9 years. And then that business got sold. And then I made a transition to go work for a distributor of natural health products. And that was my first introduction to the distribution world. And that was like being a kid in a candy store, because all of a sudden there was a plethora of brands that we were distributing across a whole bunch of different categories. So it was really exciting to sell and market to the same customers I was dealing with before, but with so many more products. So really it was a personal interest.
Yeah.
And that continues to today in terms of just really living the lifestyle and being very interested both in supplements, food, personal care products. So yes, it's distribution, a little different than conventional distribution, but at the end of the day, we're just putting different things in boxes and shipping them to retailers or customers.
So it is a personal interest for you. I mean, this was something that you early on in your life, just out of curiosity, what attracted you to that lifestyle?
Well, certainly we quickly realize as we get older that you don't live forever. And so if you want to continue living independently and not end up in a nursing home and having to, have people take care of you, then you got to take care of yourself and take personal responsibility for your fitness, what you ingest, what you think. And so those are all important things for me. Maybe I was a little enlightened at a younger age than most, but as we all get older, that becomes more of an issue for all of us.
Oh, trust me. I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah. And so for me, I really wanted to use the products, understand them, see what I could do. And so that was really what was the motivation and continues to be the motivation today for me to be able to live independently and add a life to my years, not just years to my life.
For sure. Oh, no, that makes some sense. So early on, again, this is going before Purity, when you were with it was a Quest. Did you say it's Quest, right?
Yes.
Did you all work with spokespeople or personalities to try to push these products? I mean, I'm just curious about how that works. I kind of live
Indeed,
in the
we
world of
did.
influencers. And so, yeah.
Oh, yes. I personally worked with a very infamous one in the natural health product space. His name was Dr. Bulch.
Okay.
And he had a book that maybe some of your listeners would know about. He was an American gentleman. He was a urologist, but him and his wife, Phyllis, they came out with a book called Prescription for Natural Healing. And it was probably the Bible
Oh, yeah.
at that time of the natural products industry. The book still exists today. And so I worked with him traveling throughout Canada from city to city to city, coast to coast, putting on events with him and our retail partners for consumers to come in to promote natural health products. And we had a great time together, Dr. Balch and myself, touring the country. And we did that with a number of speakers. And so that was a huge part of promoting products. So before influencers were influencers
Yeah.
or existed, or before
Yeah.
social media, we were doing that at a very grassroots level, putting ads in newspapers, going to the city, doing old
Interesting.
school radio and TV, and getting consumers to come out to support the retailers to learn more about natural health products.
I imagine those conversations as you were traveling with
Dr. Bulch.
Bulch. I imagine that really, again, kind of cemented your relationship with, this type of product and this type of industry. And, again, maybe led to more questions than answers sometimes. But yeah, interesting.
It was definitely being on the front line with consumers. So
Yeah.
we were selling to retailers, the retailers were selling to consumers, but we were there putting on these events in conjunction with the retailer, meeting with the actual customers that were purchasing the products and hearing what motivated them to purchase the products. And often they're very intimate questions that they were asking Dr. Bulch in terms of what he could suggest to improve their health in very unique and specific situations. So yes, it was very educational and perspective building for sure.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think it would be fascinating, just hearing that and spending time with people. I've been attracted to those types of programming and, now through, Netflix had a series and there's some other ones. I think it would be fascinating though, spending time with healthcare professionals or especially in the natural product space. I think that would be very interesting. Sometimes, I think we have a Western perspective and it's really interesting to, hear some different perspectives out there.
For sure. And certainly in the Pacific Northwest, where you are, the whole western side of North America, California to BC, a ton of interest. And they were definitely the pioneers in that kind of move to Eastern North America and Canada, the US. And that industry continues to grow to this day. And COVID definitely sparked a renewed interest in people taking personal responsibility for their health. And so our business continues to grow steadily and has for the 30 plus years that I've been in it. The only difference is now is you can't grow despite of yourself. You have to be very deliberate in the growth that you're trying to generate. Because there was a time way back in the early 80s and early 90s where you could grow despite of your success.
Right.
Despite of yourself, but not now. It's very competitive and lots of interest. But the good thing is consumers really embrace these products and want to take more responsibility for their health.
So I think hanging on to this influencer type of theme here. So how have you seen that evolve towards moving from, the book tour, the city to city, the traveling salesperson book tour to now in your distribution company? I mean, obviously you have many different brands that you represent and you work with on the shelves, but how has that changed the way that the messaging is coming out? How is social media a part of that messaging? And again, you were on the front side. So, I mean, how have you adapted personally to this kind of world?
It has definitely evolved. It went from doing these tours and old school with radio and TV to then Dr. Oz coming online, and he was promoting a lot of natural health products until he ran into some issues with the FTC in the US.
Indeed he did.
And Yes. And then it went to all the influencers now. So these are not
Yeah.
doctors or health professionals. These are consumers that people gravitate towards. And it's, oh, what did Kim Kardashian say today? Or what did this
Right.
XYZ influencer say today? What did Mr. Beast say today?
Yes.
And those have all had a huge impact on the products that we sell. What's the latest thing on TikTok? It's amazing how that moves the needle for our retailers. And all of a sudden we're getting calls about very unique products that, in some cases we're like, wow, where did this come from? And then all of a sudden we realize it's coming from social media. So we need to be monitoring what's going on in the social media channels to understand what we need in our innovation pipeline to be able to provide products that are going to help retailers grow their business. So it has definitely changed significantly.
Oh, absolutely. It's so funny that you said that. It just reminded me in the beauty space. I used to spend a lot of time, with people who would sell nail polish, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
And the color changes because they saw someone on TV or, someone in the media having a new color. They had to immediately shift their product to support that.
Yes.
And so they had to be hyper aware of where those things were going. And, there's a couple other preference-based businesses, that I've run into that have to be hyper aware of somewhat of influence saying, this is a color, this is a brand that I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be ready for it, especially as a distributor. Sometimes it's not as easy to turn the battleship.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talk about often with our partners, our financial partners, is this whole thing of the innovation pipeline and the innovation cycle. And for us as distributors, it's always trying to ride the wave of innovation, knowing that that wave will ultimately come to shore. Sometimes the cycles are shorter, sometimes they're longer, but you always have to be ready and looking out for that next wave that's coming and make sure that you're on it with your support to be able to ride it. Because there's this constant evolution of innovation that takes place in our industry. Yes, we have the core products like most distributors that sell day in and day out, but a lot of times our growth and general volume growth that we're seeing is coming from this innovation. And so for us, it's, Dr. Atkins with his low carb diet at one
For
time,
sure.
all the bars he was selling, and then it's, castor oil, and then it's moving to certain other enzyme products. So it's bumping around all the time. And we've got to be very diligent with understanding what that innovation or where there is growth and interest in these new products to bring it into our innovation pipeline to continue to fuel sales.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think also, if you think about, on the uptake, it's good, but you also have to be aware on the downside, when things drop. I mean, because that
Well
can
said.
happen in your business very, very quickly.
Yes, as all distributors who listen to this podcast know, the long tail of SKU proliferation. For us, before we did the acquisition, we had 14,000 SKUs. Now with this new combined entity of grocery and wellness product, we have over 28,000 SKUs. That is a long tail. And the 80-20 rule applies to us, just like it applies to most companies. And so, yes, there has to be a very disciplined approach to culling the long tail because as distributors, ultimately, we're trying to manage cash. We're trying to manage the receivables, the payables, and the inventory, the general working capital. And that's the lifeblood, literally the cash flow for our business. And so we have to be very on top of that. And all distributors listening will know this very well. I'm not telling any of your audience anything they don't know. It's just highlighting that point that it's real for all of us.
Absolutely. And again, I think sometimes people think that an industry is either insulated or immune, but no, we don't get that. Yeah.
No, we all have our little nuances, but there's a lot of very common themes.
There is. And frankly, that's why I get to keep my job is because there's a lot of commonality out there. So,
oh, yes.
But I do find every nuance fascinating. I mean, I think it's really interesting, each one of these different products. Now, do you have to deal with shelf life? I know that in the the grocery industry and some of those industries, maybe pharmaceutical as well. But in this space, in the natural product space, is that something that you all have to be very concerned about as well?
Oh, absolutely. So we're selling into the Whole Foods of the world, the equivalent of Sprouts of the world, the equivalent of Vitamin Cottage of the world in Canada. And there's regulatory issues. There is expiry date. There's lot tracking, all that type of stuff that we have to be very on top of and work with regulatory authorities in the event that there is a recall. So yes, that is a big issue for us, importing product into Canada and also distributing within Canada.
Interesting. Now, have tariffs affect your business at all? I mean, I had to say it. I just had to. It just kind of dawned on me. You said importing and exporting. I went, oh, is the T word coming up?
Yes, I mean, U.S., our American friends have always been big partners for us. All of our warehouses have American flags in them.
Sure.
Because that's a big part of our business. Our senior vice president of operations is American, although he lives here in Canada. And so we've had a long history in our 46 years of business of doing business with American companies, importing them into Canada. That's over 30% of what we do. And so, yes, when the tariff back and forth between Trump and our former prime minister was active, I mean, that had a big impact. All of a sudden, we're paying, because of counter tariffs, over $1 million in tariff revenue. It's like a tax on Canadians,
right,
for these products. And so, unfortunately, we saw a downturn in our U.S. imported products with all the noise around tariffs and buy Canadian and all that kind of stuff. That has since settled, which is nice to see.
Good.
And we're seeing a rebound in those products. We continue to look for innovation out of the U.S. We've now broadened it a little bit for stability purposes, but we go to the U.S., go to California every March to look for innovations at one of the biggest natural product shows in the world for grocery and supplement items in Anaheim, California. And the U.S. is a big part of our partnership to bring products to consumers, and will continue to be, despite of the presidents and prime ministers. They come and go.
Come and go. I absolutely, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So we will continue to do business.
Fair enough. No, I appreciate that. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSequel Distribution Software. InSequel is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I say distribution-based because that's important. Many alternatives out there say they do distribution, but they really aren't very good at it. They're generally watered-down manufacturing packages with a few distribution features tacked on. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSequel Distribution Software at www.insequel.com. That's INXSQL.com. So you alluded to this a couple of times, but I just wanted to bring it out to the forefront. A few years ago, you participated in an acquisition that, and it was actually a much more complicated acquisition than some others have experienced. So could you share a little bit about that?
It's actually very recent. So just in September of this year, we closed a very large acquisition that we've been trying to close for 13 years. We've been pursuing this owner who he had come to an age that it was time for him to sell. And so we were able to come to an agreement and close the sale at the end of August. And starting in September, we are now a much larger business. We've doubled our size. Now we have grocery, distribution items, and wellness. And so we've created these two distinct divisions. We've gone from 4 warehouses now to 7 warehouses. And we are proud to say we are Canada's only full service, national, Canadian owned distributor of natural and organic products, servicing all channels of retail in Canada. So that was very transformational for us. And brought us into a much larger segment with higher turns of the natural product categories, being grocery items. So those are dry, frozen, and refrigerated. So we are just in the 12 weeks into this integration process. And the challenge with it is we didn't buy one company. It was one holding company that held the 3. But we bought 3 companies, in essence, that all had different systems or use the systems differently, different cultures, different processes, policies, and different benefits. And we're trying to integrate them right now as we speak. I just got off a call 2 hours ago on the ERP integrations because we're trying to get all the same systems, basically the tech stack, to be aligned. And so, yes, we've taken a very aggressive integration path or journey, and we are in the early stages of it.
You're a better man than I, Matthew, just for taking on that one. That sounds pretty rough, actually. That sounds like a tough transition. But so let me ask this. You've been pursuing this company for a very, very long time. What was the goal? Why did you want to take this entity on, or what were you attracted to?
Well, definitely wanted to be a full service distributor. And so when we look to the United States and we look at the major distributors down there, UNFI and KeHE, they are full service distributors. And for us to continue to grow beyond the center store where we are primarily with wellness, we need to be in the peripheral of the store, which is where the dry, frozen, and refrigerated natural and organic grocery items are. And to really be able to step change our business, we needed to have a full offering. And so by acquiring the Horizon group of companies, we're now able to be a full service distributor to provide retailers with all the categories or the majority of categories that would help grow their business.
So you made the deal and all of a sudden you woke up and say, uh-oh, now I've got to integrate these. What are some of the big lessons you've learned now over the last, several months here that this thing has come to fruition and it's time to put the Legos together? What do we got?
Well, like anything, like Donald Rumsfeld said, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And
Sure.
we're getting to know it for sure. I think the real complexity is, yes, we bought a company, but this issue with three separate companies.
Yeah,
and they
for sure.
really ran as three separate companies. They were owned by the same person, but there's really, perspective and a learning to appreciate when you're trying to bring four companies together as one. And so we are going through this process of trying to create one Purity Life, one set of benefits, one set of policies, one tech stack, to really simplify the business to be able to, plug and play with people and to talk a common language and leverage all the systems and understanding of things. But it's easy to put that on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But it's something completely different to execute it. And obviously the key learning is definitely you've got to work through the people, and it's getting the people on side. And so with this acquisition, we've got some groups that it's great, wonderful, all this new investment. For others, it's a lot of change. And so we have to manage that change process. And the change for those people is real, and it can't be overlooked or diminished because it's impacting them. And so we are just going through the processes of working through all that change. And we've got some tools that we use to get a real-time pulse on employee feedback. And we've tried to be transparent, but it's tough for people, and it's tough for people to appreciate why things need to change. And so we are going through that process. So definitely working through the people, the cultural integration is a big part of what will ultimately determine our success.
Speaking of working through that change, and I know change management's actually a very underrated piece of any acquisition. I think a lot of folks kind of forget that. They just forget that that's going to be a very big obstacle or opportunity, whichever way you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
What's been the, kind of something that's worked really well for you? What's something that you went, okay, I'm going to take this into the next one. I'll put it that way. If you're going to have a next one, of course, not that I'm pushing you that direction, but.
Well, that's definitely our strategy to continue to grow through through acquisition beyond just Canada, looking to the U.S., other countries for sure. So there are definitely key learnings that are just in the process of being learned. But for us, what we're doing and what we're focusing on, we've got a very specific culture here. We call it COMMIT. It's the acronym that we use: collaboration, operational excellence, mutual respect, making a difference, integrity, transparency.
Okay.
And we're trying to live by that and communicate transparently to all the employees and validate their concerns. And so we've got groups that it's very positive. Oh my goodness, all this investment. Groups that's a lot of change, not so happy. And other groups that are kind of indifferent. And then the original Purity Life employees that are now part of the wellness division. So we're basically managing four groups of employees to try to get this together as one. And that in itself is a big learning, because a message that resonates with one does not resonate with the other. And our form of transparency is very different than the prior ownership's form of transparency. And so we're learning a lot in that process. And I think ultimately we're learning that we need to really appreciate and validate the change that people are going through and how it's actually impacting them, and it's actually real for them. And it's easy for us to sit here and make all these pronouncements and policy changes, but at the end of the day, it's impacting people. And we have to do our best to be transparent about why we're making these changes, but also appreciate that they're impacting people. And so the only way to get through it is to actually go through it. And so we're in the process of going through it right now to get to the other side and trying to continue to be very transparent in the process.
So I've seen different methods of communication around this, and to some extent, you'll have a CEO, president, go literally do town halls in each one of these, or could be a an encouraging email every week, or something like that. What strategy have you, communication strategy, have you personally deployed?
So we use video because of the 7 different locations and 3 different time zones that we're dealing with. So
Okay.
it's a video with a presentation. The last one we did talking about all the policy harmonizations and just general strategy of what we're doing was extensive. It's almost 30 minutes long, a little longer than 30 minutes actually. And then we followed that up with a memo, including FAQs. And then we gave people an opportunity to provide all their direct feedback. Then we took all that feedback, answered it all, and then put that out again. So basically 3 steps: a video, a memo with FAQs, and then an additional follow-up with all the questions that were submitted answered so that we could provide transparent communication and feedback to employees, as well as give them an outlet to provide very direct feedback. So we use a system here called WorkLeap Office Vibe, where they get a survey every week.
Okay.
And they can provide us very direct feedback. And so, as soon as we put out policy changes, the system lights up with feedback like immediately. And it comes directly to myself. And then there's an opportunity for myself, our senior vice president of people and culture, to respond directly to the employee. And then we share those responses that come in anonymously to our leadership group here. So everyone understands what the pulse of the employee base is. So we don't know which employee it's coming from, but we do know what the reality of the changes are and how they're landing with the various employees, the various departments, the various locations. And then we can adjust and gain perspective from that. So that methodology has helped us a lot through video, the memo, answering questions, and then getting the feedback through Office Vibe.
It feels like a pretty high touch. And it also, the cadence is very rapid, a very quick response and whatnot. And I feel like that is going to serve you extremely well. I mean, I just have a gut feeling that you've been on the acquisition side where you've been acquired. They are really looking to see, who is that person? Who is that face on the other side? And I think that absolutely, the higher the touch, the more times they can see you and they can see the direction. And it's not just a one-hit wonder. That, this is more frequent. I think this is going to serve you extremely well. And it just really eases the fear around, well, who is this? And who is Matthew? And what is Purity Life? What does commit really mean?
True. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, we live kind of by 2 philosophies here. One is we need to accept feedback as the gift it's intended to be. Although it can be harsh and direct at times or lacking perspective, it is the actual experience for the individual. And so we need to embrace that gift and then respond accordingly.
Sure.
And at the same time, we like to be candid as well and treat people like adults and give them the reality of the situation in an empathetic and validating way. But try not to sugarcoat things as it relates to why change needs to happen. If you don't change anything, nothing will change. And so that's part of the education, information, the transparency process in all of our communication. But we do acknowledge it's not easy for people for sure. And ultimately people have to choose, which culture they like to work within, what resonates with them. And that's okay.
And I think, the tech stack, the filtering the tech stack, trying to, get everybody onto one platform or a series of products. There's got to be some fear and some challenge with that as well. And it's so interesting how technology has become so personal.
Yes, so personal. And we're so dependent on it. Without technology, it's like having no legs or arms.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
And so, yes, we've set a very aggressive pace for ourselves. We closed the acquisition in August, and we expect to have the first facility up and running by May of 2026. So it's a very aggressive timeline to put in a tech stack and train. Well, I guess before training, we're trying to do these validation sessions, and then we have to do the user acceptance testing, and then we've got to deploy. And there's a lot of stuff. And it's not just one ERP system, it's the whole stack of systems that go along with the ERP system. And so it's definitely an aggressive way to do it. But for us, ultimately, to create one Purity Life that is so critical to our short and long-term success that, it has to be done for, our business to be able to succeed going forward.
And I think instilling a sense of urgency is a good thing. I think that really helps drive. Because if we do let these integrations, linger on, I think that's when they start to fall apart. I just don't think you're going to get the same results that you were hoping for. So
I agree.
a little pain up front, translates to a much longer term success. I've seen this in my own experience many times.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you're going about it the right way. It's painful. You'll probably won't sleep well for another 6 to 8 months, but you know what? That's what you have that healthy lifestyle for, to get you through that, that pain.
Well said. Yes,
Yeah,
indeed. Well said.
yeah, yeah. So, Matthew, I want to touch on something if I could. It sounds to me again like part of that culture is really also about giving back.
Mhm.
And, not only you all develop a healthy lifestyle, but it sounds like it's really a bigger philosophy than that. It's really you're in this business to invite others to the wellness journey. But also, I want to touch on something you and I have talked about before was your service work,
Mhm.
with the Canadian Health Board. So could you touch on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so I served 6 years on the Canadian Health Food Association. That's a trade association here in Canada. Like we all have as distributors, we have our trade associations.
Yeah.
And so they run two large national shows here and they advocate on behalf of the ecosystem that makes up the natural products industry. So retailers, vendors, brokers, consultants, all that are living within the natural product space, products, services that they're selling. And they do government relations work in combination of these trade shows. So I was on the board for the 6 years. 3 of those years, I think it was, or 4 of those years was as the board chair. I've since left the board to make space for new ideas. And actually, one of our senior vice presidents here at Purity Life is now sitting on that board on behalf of Purity Life. And it's made up of suppliers, retailers, vendors of the natural products world in Canada. And there's equivalent one in the US as well. And so that gave me, I should say, a lot of perspective on the various interests, but also what's required working with the government to ensure there's reasonable regulations in place to make sure we continue to have a vibrant environment for the products and services that we provide to retailers and vendors and brokers. And so great experience. And now I'm letting others within Purity Life do that to
Sure.
participate on the board as well.
So, why did you raise your hand? Because I think this is, one of the things that I try to share with listeners is how being a part of your industry is actually a critical step to many people's success. Why did you raise your hand and say, yes, I'm interested in being a part of?
Certainly to get more perspective beyond just the Purity Life world. And so us as a distributor, we look through a very specific lens. But when you're sitting on a board and you've got retailers on the board, you've got manufacturers, suppliers, maybe regulatory consultants to the industry, it provides a whole different perspective that's helpful when you're trying to ensure a vibrant ecosystem for natural health products or any industry
Yeah.
that you may be in, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, SANI, whatever.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was, and for me specifically, it was very helpful in my journey in the natural products industry, which I've been now for 30 years, to gain that perspective and then also go and meet with government officials and talk about the number of people that our industry employs and what's important and the value consumers have in natural health products. And so that was a whole other part of it. So
Yeah.
very helpful experience for myself and for Purity Life that we now continue on with someone else here at Purity Life doing the same thing. And so I would highly recommend it to anyone in the distribution world. And it's also why we also go to the US and participate in industry associations down there as well to gain perspective and, network, learn best practices.
Sure.
Very, very helpful for us to continue to grow our business.
Well, I think when you live in a silo, if you live, and you're just looking at, Purity Life, that's it, and you look at your challenges and maybe again, the suppliers maybe you work with and whatnot. I think you're right. The perspective is very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And once you open up to other professionals in your industry, wow, it just all of a sudden brings this, new ideas, perhaps, new ways of looking at things like acquisitions or technology, access to, advisory services, things like that. I think it really opens up the world, but you can be on the sidelines of one of these associations. And I have a Canadian friend who loves to say, don't be a bleacher creature, get in the game. And I'm like,
That's
okay,
true.
yeah, get in the game.
Very
And
true.
so, Greg likes to throw that one out. And, because he and I both served on boards together. And we just realized that, if you're in the middle, the opportunities and the education and the things that you will gain are just immense. And it's things that you would never know as you were walking into it. You said, well, you know what? It'd be nice to serve, but I had no idea personally what I was getting into. And
Right.
I suspect it was the same for you.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, Matthew, I truly appreciate you taking the time, man. This has been great to learn a little bit more about your journey and Purity Life. And I'm also very fascinated in this world as well that you are embracing here. So again, thank you so much for taking the time.
And my pleasure, Jason. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.